So, we are going to talk about early brain development basics. Timing is everything with the little ones. I wanted to show you this. It's a chart that shows windows of opportunity, and it's amazing in year one what's happening. If you look at this, starting at birth, which is 0 on year one, all these things are happening immediately. Seeing and hearing, receptive language, speech production, and then the cognitive functions get better and better, as you'll see on that red line. But look, the first 12 months of life is the window of opportunity to learn language. And that's what we really have to remember about how essential it is that kids hear as much and as many words as they can, and they are using all their senses because that's how their brains are forming. They're knitting together. So every sense they use is making another neural pathway in their brain, which is really pretty amazing when you see it right there in green, blue, and red. So these are wild humans. It's the only time in the human lifespan we are not attached to the digital world. So babies are true humans. They're wild humans. They have not been domesticated by the digital world. So it's a really special time that we have to stand back and allow them to really, really bloom and blossom. So the 5 R's of healthy brain development of the wild human. This is really important for them to develop in every way, physically, mentally, and emotionally. So relationship is number one. The bonds that we create with our grandchildren is the most important thing we can do for supporting their healthy brain development, because they need to see our faces and they need to interact, which is the next thing, responsive interactions. It's a little like playing ball. So what we need to do is train in on what they're doing, their facial expressions, their gestures, their sounds, and their beginning words like babbles and goos and stuff like that. We have to really watch them to understand how they're feeling and then to respond. So we're not really just observers, we're active participants. So that's what they really need. They need this interaction. So they throw you a little gurgle and a facial expression, and you answer right back. That's how they learn to talk. And then again, this respecting their once in a lifetime opportunity, the only time in life they're free and unplugged, and how quickly their brain is developing. Listen to this, 1 million neural connections per second. That's literally mind boggling. We really have to respect that, how quickly that they are developing, and they respond to their environment just as quickly. And they like routines. So it's kind of like keep it simple, baby. You don't need to entertain them. You can smile and talk to them and hold their hand and let them feel your finger, and they love that. So you don't have to do anything fancy. And they like predictability. They'll start to respond to routines in their lives. So that would be, regular naps and that winding down that happens with naps and gentle waking them up. And they get to understand the routines of life. And they like repetition. So if you have a favorite song or rhyme or story, that builds their brain connections by the repetition. It builds those brain pathways. However, it's not something you want to do with screen media, because screen media really overdoes it with their senses. It's oversensory, and it blazes pathways of the brain, and it kind of blows other stuff away. So if they watch the ABCs over and over again in a video, like on Coco Melon or something like that, they are going to be habituated to that. And they actually might be able to babble the ABCs, but they're going to have a much harder time learning how to speak in sentences or in other words. So reinforcing screen media should not happen. In fact, the American Academy of Pediatrics tells us that kids under 18 months really shouldn't be exposed to screen media at all. And that includes screens playing in the background. So we have to remember that. Repetition is good if it's in person. Tech gets in the way of this. Here are just a couple examples of a product that's on the market to attach a phone to the wall to play while you're changing the baby's diaper. Now we know that this is a perfect time for face-to-face interaction for this little baby to get to know her caretaker and to watch her caretaker speak. This is how babies are up close and personal and they can learn how to speak. This is a perfect touch point not to have a screen. Over here, this kid, his focal distance is like 6 inches. It's not a good idea. And that's why there's an epidemic of myopia in the world, which is nearsightedness, but not farsightedness. And then here's another one, another couple pictures. Child on the left is feeling bereft. They have done studies, and a kid's physiological self changes. They actually have a stress response when the caregiver is blocking them by a phone. And this one is a true life story on the right there of a kid who just stood in front of an 6-inch TV all day long and eventually developed autistic-like symptoms because there was no other brain input for this child. This kid could probably say the ABCs or mimic whatever was on this TV, but didn't know how to interact with anybody. And when they get this watching screens for hours a day, they go into their own little world. You can even call their names and they don't respond. So it's a new syndrome called virtual autism. And luckily, scientists around the world are realizing this kind of behavior will reverse or go away if the child stops being exposed to screens, either sitting on the floor like this in tablet form or on the wall. So I just wanted to give one case study of how we can be helpful and expand learning in person with kids. I wanted to bring it up from a visit I had with my grandson last week. And it was just really funny how things developed after we stumbled across, almost stumbling. You can almost see me taking a picture of this window. We were walking to the grocery store and there was a library on the way, and they posted a book in the window. So this was the cover, and the next window was page 1 and 2, and it told the story of the little fire truck. One of the pages was like, I'm a little fire truck, engine 45, big lights flash, time to dash, a fire's on Lake Drive. Well, my 3-year-old grandson, he wouldn't stop asking questions about the fire. Why was the fire on the 3rd floor? This particular book had all about the firefighters getting ready and putting on all their equipment and jumping in the fire truck and then rushing off to the scene. They even had an axe in there where they broke the door down. I mean, this is a kid's book. So then he has this construction paper. His favorite color is red. So we had to make the equipment. So I had just brought a pack of red construction paper to the house because he ran out. And there we were making boots that we taped around his feet, and the fire hose is up in the upper right, and the talkie-walkie is there. That's what he calls it. And then there's the ladder, and there is the mask to go into the house when you knock down the door to see if people are need to be saved. And he said, well, you have to put the headlamp on it. You just can't have the gas mask on there. And I'm like, yeah. So I put the headlamp in there. So anyway, and then a couple days later, we go to this park, and it happened to have this big fire truck. And so he was really into it, and he was like, where are the hoses? And all Fisher Price put all this other stuff in this donated truck, and not a hose to be seen. It was hard to understand why there wasn't a hose. And then in the book, we saw the pipe that the firefighters go down. Lo and behold, there's one of those. So there's my daughter helping him go down the pipe. It was just interesting how it played out, and that how we can enhance their experience with just a little bit of extra effort. Maybe getting out of the house and finding out if you hear there's a playground with this kind of thing, go there. We know that to be efficient with human beings is to be slow and to listen and to engage. Whereas we know with machines, the faster it can crank things out, the better. With human beings, it's the opposite. We need to just relax and be there. I actually got involved in I instigated a little bit of a campaign against a Prime Video ad on DirecTV. Grandparents were there, and they opened up a note from their own children, the grown-ups. They were babysitting a kid who looked like about 14 months old in a wind up seat that rocks back and forth. And apparently the note said, just turn on the big TV and wind up the kid and face him toward the TV and just leave it alone. The implication was the grandparents like giving each other the wink, like, oh, good, now we don't have to do anything. And I thought it was an insult to the grandparents and to you know, the parents, and tried to get that thing taken off the air. I went to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry's media committee, and they wrote a letter. And I
Oh,
think
cute.
they stopped that. But we have to understand doing that is not the kind of environment that grows their brain and actually can send them back the other direction. And so it was just kind of insulting that grandparents depicted like that, I thought. So we have to use some sense to make good choices and I guess be good examples. So as we wrap up, can we each say maybe one way we can be good examples?
I leave my phone in my office where I am now when Perry comes.
Oh, wow, that's beautiful. Oh,
Because she wants to play with it.
oh, okay.
Because you know why she likes it? Because when they take her picture.
Oh, mhm.
Yes.
So whenever when the phone comes out and she smiles, so it's like she's already got that muscle memory built.
Oh, oh my gosh. Well, but you also probably want to not distract yourself with the phone.
Correct. No, it's for me more than for her. Yeah.
Okay. You Meg.
Uh, Similarly, I usually have my cell phone in my pocket so that I've got it to take a picture, Jerry. But so I don't actually leave it in another room, but I do try and keep it out of sight. And I have to say, on the occasion where I've had him over on a Saturday, my Notre Dame football games will just have to wait until another time.